In today's video, we will be discussing Serval, who is a powerhouse free-to-play unit. She is a lightning element unit, and she is on the erudition path, which means she excels at AoE damage. She's actually a very underrated unit who you will see very surprising results if you invest in her and build her. I know a lot of people are really worried about Jing Yuan coming out right now and power creeping her and replacing her, but if you aren't rolling for Jing Yuan, which I know a lot of people aren't, I highly suggest building her. You'll get a lot of use from her later in the game, especially against robot enemies and enemies like Svarog, and she will give you some great results. Okay, so let's take a quick look at her skills and abilities. Okay, so let's talk about Serval's skills and abilities. To start off, we have her basic attack, Roaring Thunderclap. It's very similar to all the other basic attacks in the game. However, it does have some synergy with her talent, and you can get an Eidolon to enhance this effect. Next, we have Serval's skill, Lightning Flash, which is a cleave type skill. So it does primary damage to a single target, and the two targets beside the primary target also take a reduced amount of damage. The primary target takes 2 break units of damage and to their shield, and the secondary targets take 1 break unit of damage to their shields. The interesting part about this ability is that it has an 80% base chance for enemies to become shocked, and this shock lightning dot also scales off of her attack, so it's quite strong. Next, we have Serval's ultimate, Here Comes the Mechanical Fever. It's a true AoE attack, it hits all the enemies, it has low energy cost, and it also extends the duration of the shocks that you have placed on the enemy's part. So with this, Serval doesn't necessarily need to always use her skill to put the shock on the enemy, she can refresh it with her ultimate. Next, we have Serval's talent, Galvanic Cords. So whenever Serval uses any abilities, whether it's basic attack, skill, or ultimate, this talent will proc. And it does lightning damage equal to whatever trace level you have of Serval's attack to all shocked enemies. Lastly, we have Serval's technique, which is Goodnight Bellabog, which is just a basic 50% of Serval's attack damage to a random enemy. But the main part of this one is that it has a 100% base chance for all enemies to become shocked for 3 turns. Since Serval has a lot of energy recharge, and she also starts off with a lot of energy because of her traces, and even because of her light cone, she can actually have her ult up really quickly. So you can maybe use the technique and start off with an ult to get some nice bursts in at this. Serval has really good traces. So her first major trace is Rock and Roll. So it increases her skill's chance to apply shock by 20%. So this is huge because it has an 80% base chance, and with this talent you have a 100% chance. And this is the first trace that I would definitely take. Next, we have the major trace, String Vibration. At the start of a battle, immediately regenerate 15 energy. This one's good, but if you had to pick out of the 3, this is definitely the one I would max the last, because it only occurs once at the start of a battle, and the other 2 will be happening quite frequently throughout the battle. Next, we have the last major trace, Mania. Upon defeating an enemy, attack is increased by 20% for 2 turns. This one's pretty good. It's not as good as you think, because we have a lot of sources of attack percentage, but it's still, free damage is always good, so it's pretty good as well. And we also have a lot of floating crit rate minor traces in her traces, so that's good. It can help you pick up extra crit rate, so you may be able to do a crit damage chest piece instead of crit rate. And yeah, so the order to level the traces in would be Rock and Roll first, Mania second, and String Vibration third. Serval has 2 main playstyles. So her first main playstyle is as a sub DPS. This is what you will see her as more frequently. She will use her skill initially to apply shock on the enemies, and then she will use basic attacks and ultimate to extend the duration of the shock. This is the way that you will see her primarily played, just because her single target DPS isn't that good, and Currently, the game is mostly focused on single target DPS, especially in the later levels of Forgotten Hall in the MLC. And her second playstyle obviously is as a main carry, where she will be the primary damage dealer with her supports. This playstyle obviously isn't that popular, and it probably won't be until the content caters to it. Okay, let's go over the Litecoin choices for Serval. So to start off, we have Data Bank, which is a 3-star. Increases the wearer's ultimate damage by 28 at super in position 1, and then increases the wearer's ultimate damage by 56 at super in position 5. Not a bad Lightcone. Obviously the base stats will be low on it just because it is a 3-star, but it's a great starting point. Next we have Passkey. After the wearer uses their skill, additionally regenerate 8 energy. This effect can only be triggered 1 time per turn. This is not bad either, to be honest. With this and all of her other abilities, you can get her ult up probably very, very frequently. Next, we have Sagacity. When the wearer uses their ultimate, increases attack by 24% for 2 turns. Also, another decent Lightcone. I wouldn't recommend any of these Lightcones for the long term, obviously, just because they are 3-star Lightcones, and the stat difference between 3 and 4-star is pretty big. And then between a 3 and 5-star is just huge. Okay, let's go over the 4-star Lightcones. First, we'll go over the Birth of Self, which is the Herda Lightcone. So, increases damage dealt by the wearer's follow-up attacks by 48%. That already there just means no Serval, because she doesn't have any follow-up attacks. So this one is not for Serval, so don't run it on her. Next we have Serval's signature Lightcone, Make the World Clamor. So at max super imposition, this is the wearer regenerates 32 energy immediately upon entering battle and increases ultimate damage by 64%. This one is pretty good for her, however, the energy is only a one-time effect, so it's not going to be something that's consistent throughout the battle, and the ultimate is a large part of her damage, but I think she just prefers general damage or attack rather than just ultimate damage. Then next we have the one that I'm using currently, the free-to-play, the Seriousness of Breakfast, just because it is super easy to get it super in position 5. So this one is just a 24% flat damage increase, and for every defeated enemy, the wearer's attack increases by 8%, stacking up to 3 times, which is actually really easily doable. So this one is a really good free-to-play Lightcone, and it's the one I'm currently using. Next, we have the Battle Pass Lightcone. Today is another peaceful day. After entering battle, increases the wearer's damage based on the max energy. Damage increases by 0.2% for super imposition 1, up to 160 energy, and at max super imposition it's 0.4. So her ultimate costs 100 energy, so at super imposition 1 you're looking at 20% damage increase, and at super imposition 5 you're looking at a 40% damage increase. At super imposition 5, I think this one is definitely better than Breakfast, but it's also going to take 5 months to get this at super imposition 5. So for now, I definitely, and there is characters that use this Lightcone way better than Serval. So while it's really good on her, I don't recommend going for this one, especially not for super impositions, until you can get 1 copies of some of the other Battle Pass weapons. Lastly, we have Genius's Repose. This one increases the wearer attack by 16% at super imposition 1, and when the wearer defeats an enemy, the wearer's crit damage increases by 24% for 3 turns. This is a good one. Attack percent is definitely weaker than damage percent, but the crit damage is huge. But it is a gacha weapon, and I just think the Seriousness of Breakfast is just a bit more consistent. So that's the one that I think is probably the best bet for Serval right now. Next, we have the 5 stars, Night on the Milky Way. It's not a bad Lightcone, it's just not a good Lightcone either. And it's definitely inferior to the Jingyuan Lightcone. But let's go over this one as well. For every enemy on the field, increases the wearer's attack by 9%. And when an enemy is hit with Weakness Break, the damage dealt by the wearer increases by 30% for 1 turn. And at max super imposition, which isn't realistic for us free-to-play players, Its wearer's attack by 15% up to 5 stacks, and the break weakness break causes the damage dealt by the wearer to be increased by 50%. It's good, but it's also reliant on the enemy, and it's not a very consistent Lightcone, but it's obviously, if you have it, I would probably still run it for sure. Next, we have Before Dawn, which is the best Lightcone on Serval, even though she can't make full use of it. So it increases the wearer's crit damage by 36%. Huge stat right there. Increases the wearer's skill and ultimate damage by 18%. Another huge boost. And the next part is about follow-up attacks, which Serval does not have. But even without having a follow-up attack, this is by far and away her best in slot Lightcone right now. Do I suggest you roll on the Jingyuan weapon banner to get this Lightcone? No, just because there will probably be Lightcones further down the line that will have stuff that she can make full use of, rather than having to make half use of the weapon just because it's best in slot right now. So right now I'm recommending getting the Seriousness of Breakfast to Super Imposition 5 as your best bet for Serval. For relic sets, Serval's best is Band of Sizzling Thunder, the 4-piece. So the 2-piece increases lightning damage by 10%, straightforward, and then the 4-piece set bonus is when the wearer uses skill, increases the wearer's attack by 20% for 1 turn. That's her best set. If you can't get that one, you want to do 2 pieces of Sizzling Thunder, and then you want to do 2 pieces of Wild Wheat. And if you can't get any good Sizzling Thunder pieces, then I would do 4-piece Wild Wheat, just because it is such a great generalist set, and you will see a lot of use out of it, and so you can never really go wrong with leveling it currently. For the planar set, you want to do the Space Stealing Station. So this one is straightforward as well. Increases the wearer's attack by 12%. When the wearer's speed reaches 120 or higher, the wearer's attack increases by another 12%. As for stat priority, main stat on the chest, you want crit rate or crit damage. You want to do attack percent or speed for the boots. Serval is one of the characters where you can get away with running attack percent on the boots and have it be really, really good. And then for the link rope, you want attack percent again. And for the planar orb, you want lightning damage. In terms of substat priority, you want to do crit rate or crit damage are the highest. Next up is attack percentage, and then lastly is speed. So those are the stats that you want for Serval, and those are the relic sets that you want for Serval. Serval has some really, really strong Eidolons. So to begin, her first Eidolon is Echo Chamber. Basic attack deals lightning damage equal to 60% of the basic attack's damage to a random enemy adjacent to the target of the basic attack. If you're going to be running her as a sub DPS, which is the most common way to currently run her, this is going to be a nice bonus to have. It's just going to give you extra cleave with your talent and with this. So it's just a good DPS increase. Next, we have Encore. This is a really, really good Eidolon for Serval. Every time Serval's talent is triggered to deal additional damage, she regenerates 4 energy. So let's say 3 or 4 enemies are shocked and you press basic attack. That right there is 12 energy on 3 enemies and 16 energy on 4 enemies. So this is really, really good to get her ultimate back up and to make it so she doesn't have to use her skill as frequently. 3 is just your regular skill up Eidolon. 4. So make some noise. Ultimate has a 100% base chance to apply shock to any enemies not currently shocked. This shock has the same effects as the one applied by skill. So in any fights where you, let's say the shock has fallen off or there's more than 3 enemies, this is really, really good to get the shock back on. And it's just a great quality of life Eidolon to have on her, and it just increases her potential. Number 5 is just another straight skill increase Eidolon, and number 6 is Serval deals 30% more damage to shocked enemies. So this is just a flat 30% increase to her damage when an enemy is shocked, which they always should be if you're running Serval. So this is a great Eidolon, and if you have E6, Serval, you're going to be pumping out some really, really big deeps. Serval can be ran in a variety of different team comps. The quintessential free-to-play comp is the one you will see her in a lot. So it is Donhang as the main damage dealer who will be consuming most of the skill points. Then you will have Serval as the sub-damage dealer who will be using skill points only when needed to apply shock, otherwise she will be doing basic attacks. You will be running either Trailblazer Fire or March 7th as your shielding preservation unit, and you will have Natasha as your healer. This is a comp that you will run quite frequently at the start, but as you start to get more characters and more supports, you will see that someone like Donhang, who's a hunt unit, will want some type of supporting Harmony characters or debuffing Nihility characters. So you will see someone like Serval maybe down the line get replaced in this team with someone like Ting Yun, or even let's say like a Pela, or any of these units. And you can always run Serval, especially to break the robots. But later on, when you get further into the Memory of Chaos, you can also run Serval as a main DPS unit as well. And that comp will look something like, you will have Serval here as it says sub damage dealer, you change it to main damage dealer. You will have someone like maybe Pela, and you always need 2 tanks in the Memory of Chaos. So I would do Trailblazer Fire, and I would do Natasha. Mind you, Serval is not the unit to take if it is a strong single target boss, which the majority of Memory of Chaos is. So I don't recommend taking her there. There also are a lot of experimental comps that you can run in the future. You have Serval, and she does have decent synergy with Sampo, and I haven't seen people running them together yet, but I think people are just waiting for a dot enabler. Someone like Kafka down the line will make this comp really, really scary, where a lot of the characters are stacking dots. So Serval is a very, very flexible unit, and she can be used in a variety of different team comps. Thank you everyone for watching the guide, and hopefully you find that this information helps you in building Serval, who is a great unit. Bye now. You take all of